I'm sorry, Spencer. I was like, let's just mess with it real quick.
No,
Okay.
No, I think it's working. I hope it's not gonna give me much trouble.
Nova, this is Spencer.
Somehow the
I'm
camera
Nova.
doesn't want to
This is
stay
Spencer.
on. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Hey guys, thank you for joining us. I'm gonna go to the area where Yuli and Spencer are waiting for us. So we have a special guest today. I'll tell you about him in a minute, but meanwhile, you guys want to have updates from the warehouse, which I'll be happy to deliver. So we do have pallet from Iwata just came in. We didn't receive this one yet. We did have restocking of custom creative. It again for some reason took 3 months, but we're working on it. There's definitely something wrong with the reorder time on those. I mean, delivery of the reordering. We've been waiting for quite a bit of time, but we just got from 6 months delivery as it was the previous order to just 3 months delivery. Unbelievable, right? But yeah, so we got Army Painter restocking here with a full pallet.
I had no expectation of winning, and I didn't.
For receiving some other Badger boxes, I can recognize them. So we constantly have, you know, it seems that we're out of stock sometimes or often on the things, but receiving here is really active.
I'm just talking to my friend.
It's a lot of rotation, so a lot of things going on.
And then they don't.
We got all this water spray guns, which
Here we go.
just arrived also, and yeah, this is our shipping station, so it's pretty busy now. People are picking stuff. We just got off to lunch. There's Daniel. Daniel's actually very well cooking for us sometimes. But it's gonna be quite warm here because this is the AC guy there trying to fix our AC. And here we go. We got the guys here, Spencer and Yuli. So just a few words. Spencer, he's a local guy. Luckily, you know, he lives in the area. And surprisingly, he'd been painting for just 2 years with figures. Now, he'd been painting other things before, but figures for 2 years. And I thought, you know, this is the great way to learn from somebody who's still fresh enough to remember all the like beginner things you should know in terms of like what kind of mistakes or issues or, you know, difficulties you can run into. Because when you talk to somebody who's been doing it for 20 years, they might forget what basics are in the way, which is like, yeah, you just do this thing, and like, what thing? I don't know what you're talking about. Like, but anyways, I gotta pass mics, so we're only limited to 2 microphones, so I have to give mine to Yuli right here, and this is Spencer, and you guys will have fun with them, I hope. So anyway, do this. Here we go.
All right, cool. Okay. Should catch all my breathing on this one. Check, mic check. Hey everybody, thank you for stopping by with the live. We got Spencer over here. He won a few awards, you know, no biggie, at Nova Open this year. Really talented guy, like Artem was talking about. We're gonna be going over, focusing on how you want to get your army painted quickly, how you want to get a piece focused on. So the similar techniques that you'll be applying to, I have, what, 40 Kriegsman to paint?
Yeah.
For a game in like 2 weeks from now? Yeah. I got Lionel Johnson right on there, and I gotta do all of this work to make the metallic look metallic, make the letter look like letter without actually using metallics or letters.
Yeah.
Or a green without a green, which we gotta talk about that.
Yes, painting green without using any green paint. That's another thing. That's pretty cool.
It is. So let's get started talking about Nova and Capital Palette.
Okay, great.
What were your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, Nova Open is an absolute blast. If you haven't been to any painting competitions, but Warhammer tabletop game related conventions in general, I highly recommend checking out Nova Open in Washington, D.C. It's my favorite that I've been to. And I go not to compete in the Warhammer competitions. They have huge grand tournaments. Warhammer's there, Games Workshop, big deal. I go for the Capital Palette painting competition. It's my favorite part, as well as the Hobby Haven, which sounds small, but it's basically just a big hallway with a lot of tables and all of the hobby supplies you can think of, sponsored by everyone else you can think of, giving all the paint, all the other hobby supplies you need. Yeah. It's fully staffed all day, and people are there to ask questions, but so that's where I spent most of my time.
Yeah. I remember that you were also like volunteer to help out in there. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a local, so I was talking here, hanging out. We play games here, so I was here, and you had asked me to help out with cleaning some of the airbrushes between the painting classes.
Yeah.
This year, because there was a lot of painting classes.
There were so many more. We were talking to the guys, and they're like, "Yeah, we want to bring more people in and like showcase the airbrushing." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. We're gonna need help."
Yeah.
Let me take a reliable guy. Here we go.
Yeah, I think they doubled the amount of painting classes between 2024 and 2025. And of all those, there's more airbrush stations than ever. So there was a lot to go through, lots to work on.
Yeah, which we helped with, and that's why it was really fun last year. There were so many questions being answered and such. But let's focus back onto this guy.
Okay.
You got quite a few pieces in here. I see a lot of Star Wars guys, and I see a very intense Lionel Johnson.
Yeah, so this is, I kind of brought this, just a few things that I had really quickly to kind of showcase how you can paint something really quickly to a level that you're happy with, maybe more than just a tabletop standard. But each of these guys for Star Wars was painted in about 30 minutes. And you can get a good result pretty quickly with some basic concepts. And then you can take those same painting concepts and techniques and elevate those using the same ideas and just spend a lot more time and paint something to like a higher quality. Maybe for a centerpiece model for your tabletop army or for a painting competition.
Like Lionel Johnson there.
Mr. L. Johnson. This is for my army. I painted him for about a week. I would say that he's more of an high elevated tabletop standard, not quite ready for painting competition level, but all of the things that I used to paint this guy right here are the same techniques and same methods of painting that I used to paint the Star Wars army in about 30 minutes a model.
Yeah. We were talking about focusing on volumetric highlights because it is very commonly, one of the most commonly asked questions when I have people asking me about when using the airbrush, it's like, where do you put the white? Like, do you just do at this angle and that's just a zenithal? How do you make sure you can catch the attention from any angle? What parts would it be like the most eye-catching and make sense and realistic? A good general on that, and it's like whatever parts will catch the light, just move it around.
I think a good idea for using volumetric highlighting and where to put your highlights, think ahead before you put any paint on the model. When you're planning it, think about what you're trying to show. Look at the model. What are the things that you see first? Oftentimes, if you're painting a person, in most cases, we're drawn to looking at faces first. So I like to use my brightest highlights closer to the face, maybe on the chest and shoulders. If it's a person, that's a Warhammer-sized model, something similar. So I focus on my brightest highlights, and maybe I'll just use 1 or 2 steps down, closer to a mid-tone, if I'm painting the abdomen and chest or things on the floor. Unless, of course, it's something that's metal and very reflective. And then you might go a little brighter in some certain places. Maybe just a smaller specular highlight instead of something that's nice and big. So maybe catches less attention.
Yeah, it still reads as metal, but it's not as shiny as a full-blown aluminum piece just like glaring your eyeballs. Or chrome,
Yeah, and that's kind of the, going back to capital palette, those are kind of the ideas that I used to paint my competition piece for the capital palette entry.
Beautiful piece, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll...
So I have the green one and the other one, which is, so I have this guy.
Yeah, so it's not him. That's this guy, Lionel Johnson here. It's a little ghoul skeleton. Yeah, this guy.
That's the one,
So,
what a piece.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I don't have it here. I didn't want to bring it back with me from Washington, D.C. and have it break in flight. It did break on the way to the competition.
Oh, no.
And I had to spend a couple days fixing it before I entered it into the competition. But this was... it's kind of the same idea with that piece. You can see where I started. Artem is showing some of the pictures that I sent over to the guys. So when I first started the piece, I started thinking of where I wanted the light to come from. And in this case, instead of being the sun, just some midday light, which is usually about a 45-degree angle up above somebody's head for tabletop. This I wanted all the light for this piece to kind of come from the lantern, and then just a small bit of light coming from behind the model. There's an archway and there's some moonlight coming in, but 75 to 95% of the light is all coming from this lantern. But that being said, I still use a lot of the same ideas where I'm focusing. I kind of cheat it a little bit, because if you look at the piece's face, it's very bright and it catches a lot of attention. I think in real life, this isn't real life, but in real life, it probably wouldn't catch as much light as I gave it on the piece's face. But when you're painting models, you want the eye of the viewer to be drawn to a certain point. So I added some extra light to the face. I got a lot of great feedback from some phenomenal painters.
It's a Hollywood, the Hollywood technique when you have somebody go into space and have all the light, inside, like when your eyes are like.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. There's a great painter named Raven who was up at the competition, and I'm still an apprentice. We can go over this in a minute, but this was all the awards that I won were for the apprentice level in the competition. So I'm still a beginner, relative beginner, moving up to Journeyman next year. Because I won a gold medal. So when I was there at the convention before I entered my piece, what I recommend to other people do too is I bothered everyone that would listen to me.
Yep.
I tapped on the shoulder of every painter I recognized or every person that looked friendly enough to bother.
Yep.
And I asked them for feedback. I showed them the piece. I talked to them. I let them know what I was trying to accomplish. I got lots and lots and lots of great, valuable feedback. But one thing that stuck with me was what this painter Raven said. He was talking to me about the face. I had it too dark at first, and it was more realistic because I have more of an art background. So I was painting something that I thought would look real.
Yeah.
But he looked at me and he said, "You're not painting something real." And that line really stuck with me. Like, we're not painting real things. You can cheat. You can be flexible about where you want to show the viewer your art, what you want to do, what you want to say. So
I love that. Yeah, really great guy.
So I wanted to talk really quickly about the Capital Palette competition, and that it's an open competition, and I want to talk about why that's so cool to me. So a lot of painters or Warhammer players might be familiar with something like Golden Demon, which is obviously really big Warhammer painting competition where there's a bronze medalist, a silver medalist, and a gold medalist, and those are the winners of the competition.
Yep.
Yeah, come on. Just a technical correction.
Sure.
I hear you really good. I don't
Okay.
hear you really good at all. I think your mic's picking
We have a
him up.
mic trouble, so we're fixing it. Is that better?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, we'll check on it, but I'll talk really loud and close to Uli
There you go.
at the moment.
Yeah.
So
Speaking to my chest.
Capital Palette is an open competition where the judges take all of the submitted pieces and then they judge the competition based on those pieces and set a bar. They set a bar for bronze, silver, and gold medalists. And if you reach the conditions to receive a bronze medal, you're awarded a bronze medal, even if that means there's 20 bronze medals. The same with silver and the same with gold. That's good because if you paint to a certain level, you could get an award even though somebody else wins in that same level of competition. The downside is there could be 20 bronze medals, 5 silver, and no gold.
Yep.
If the judges decide nobody made it to that gold level, they're not going to award any of those. But what I like about the open version of the competition versus the traditional first, second, third place winner competition is that you're really competing against yourself. So the first year I entered Capital Palette was the first painting competition I ever entered. I'd only been painting for a few months at the time. And I entered just a piece that I painted for the tabletop. It wasn't a big, extraordinary painting competition piece with lots of detail. I was still new. And I think the Capital Palette entry came with my ticket to Nova Open. So I just used that to enter. And then I had so much fun and my eyes were open so much to how good painting can be that I was really interested in getting better the next year. So I was able to set a bar for myself based on my experience that I had the year before. And now that I've won some awards at the Capital Palette, I'm now competing against myself for next year. So my goal for next year is to try to beat what I did this year. So there are in each division, there are 3 divisions at Capital Palette. There's the apprentice level, which is what I entered, because I had never entered a painting competition before. Generally, if you've never done that, you would enter apprentice level. The next level is Journeyman. If you win a gold medal in any category in apprentice, you move up to Journeyman the next year, and then so on and so forth from Journeyman to master level. There are 5 categories in each division. I think 5. There's small scale, large scale, dioramas, vehicles, and busts. I might be missing something, and I apologize if I am. So
there's a lot.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So if you are in a category, like I said, there could be multiple gold winners in each category. So of all of the gold winners in each category, they pick a best in category. And of all of the in the division of the 5 categories, they take those 5 best in category winners, and one of them gets the best in division. If you win any gold medal, like I said, you move up.
Mm-hmm.
If you win best in category, best in division, it's just like you did a really good job. So they're proud of you. And this year, I'm not good at talking about myself, but
that's what I'm here to watch.
I know.
Tell me about that one. It's clear. It's round. What does that say?
Yeah. So this was my gold medal for winning the golden category. So I met the standard to achieve gold in large scale models.
Beautiful.
And then they decided that I was the best in the category. So of all the gold winners, I don't remember how many there were off the top of my head, unfortunately, but there was maybe 10 or so gold winners in my category.
Mm-hmm.
And then of all of the best in categories, in the apprentice division, I was given best in division, which I was over the moon about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That just means
not expected.
Yeah, I don't blame you, but that just means you go from like, I think you're gonna maybe level up to like, you level up on like royalties with bonuses and extras, because that is one heck of a second year level.
Yeah.
Second time entering, and look what you get. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm obviously really happy with that. I spent a lot of time painting between the competition in 2024 and the competition in 2025.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have late Thursday nights where we just hang out, paint, and just play some games. More often than one, when you can make it, it's like, oh yeah, roll the dice and such. How are you doing? And you're just
I'm
like
just painting,
like you call the hunch over goblin, like, I gotta get the green right.
Painting like a goblin. I don't have good posture when I paint. I don't recommend that.
No, I shrimp up too.
Yeah, I stand up straight.
It's like stand up straight, but then like you're doing this, your arm gets tired. But like, I just look away from this guy. He's like, okay, just working, cool. Roll, okay, cool. You got all right, good. How are you? What is that?
Something else I'm working on. Yeah.
And it's like, I remember you working on the lion.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what color are you going for? Like, that's kind of weird, but I trust the process, no problem.
Yeah.
And then he shows up and he's like, oh, it's a non-metallic metal on all these little pieces, and you see the shade and and I'm just like,
yeah, I think I think non-metallic metal tricks people because it's this big scary monster in the world of miniature painting.
It's like the boogeyman, yeah.
It is, yeah. It's the boogeyman of painting. But the techniques you use to volumetric highlight anything, the way you would a cloak or a stone or anything, it's the same style. It's the same painting, same techniques that you use to create non-metallic metal. It's just where you place your light, and you create a lot more contrast using dark to light. So there's a lot of ways to create contrast. That word contrast gets thrown around a lot. When you ask people for feedback, the first thing you hear is needs more contrast.
Yep.
But contrast can mean a lot of things. You can use a lot to create contrast. And I think what people mean most of the time is the difference between going from a dark color to a light color. Chiaroscuro, they call it. And that's using that method to create a lot of contrast really quickly from dark to light is like the best way to create non-metallic metal. And the other side of it is where to place your light.
Yep.
The easiest way to figure that out is to do a little demo. When the model's painted all black and shiny, put a bright light on it and take a picture of it. And that's exactly where you should put your light.
Yep. And then exaggerate it a little bit afterwards. So when you go to 110%, that extra, which really separates the fantasy pieces from like the historical or like the other models, because when you do the tank, you can do like a nice gradient and it looks solid. When you do an airplane, you can do different color panels and it looks solid. You cannot do that with this, guys, because you want this to pop. You want to be like, oh, that's Lionel Johnson, like all the way across the studio. Be able to recognize the colors, the pop, make that bring up.
And that's why they call it a centerpiece model. So when you want to paint something to that higher level and make it pop on the table,
exactly.
Centerpiece model.
Tell me about texture, because that's something we have talked about before, because non-metallic metal really is just layering the paints to simulate metallic effects.
Right.
But you can do the same thing to simulate leather.
Yeah. So I have an example of it here that we were, just because we were talking about it. His cloak has a lot of texture on it. It's done pretty quickly. But you'll notice that the dark to light, that creating contrast through volumes, or up through the volume, is the same idea. So I start with, a lot of people start with their midtone and then they do the shadows and they do the highlights. I usually start with my darkest color and work my way up. So I still did that with the cloak versus painting some of the non-metallic metal, but instead of creating big sweeping lines to fill in blocks of color, I just used lots of really thin lines. But the only thing I'm still doing is creating a layer of paint, and the brighter I get, the less space I cover. all the way up to my brightest highlight, which on the cloak was not near as bright as something as the sword. Sword, I'm going to almost white, whereas the cloak, I'm going to a much more muted lavendery color.
Yeah.
And not going up to that bright color, or else the cloak's going to look like metal, because that's how you do it.
Yep, and then it becomes a centerpiece when you're looking at it, where the way you have it, you're like, the shield catches my eye from this angle. From the other angle, the sword does. From the back, you can still see the feathers on the top of the head, and the cloak works well with the non-metallic metal. It doesn't take away attention.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away the highlight, but it just helps a piece all together.
Right.
That's a really beautiful way of like keeping the control of it. And also in the parchment, like I noticed that too. You have it so that it's like, hey, where it's like more bent in when it is darker than towards the tip in the beginning, which is a really good way to simulate shadows on paper.
Right. Right. yeah. And that's volumetric highlighting, really. It's just finding out where the light's not going to hit as much. I generally stray away from using, there's nothing against it if you're painting an army really quickly. Like you said, painting 40 Kriegsmen earlier. If I was painting 40 Kriegsmen as fast as I can, I'm probably not going to be, I might not be doing this with all of them. I might be using something like a wash. So a lot of people use washes for painting their miniatures. And obviously, like I said, nothing against that at all. I generally steer away from that because washes tend to settle in recesses, which is kind of the point. But light doesn't work that way.
Nope.
So if I have a fold that's much like this, and it's shaped, something like this.
Taking notes?
Yep. So if you put a wash on a fold in a cloak, let's say, that's like this, that wash is going to settle in the middle, and it's going to create a big, thick, dark line on your model. But that's not really how light works. Light is going to treat the direction, if a light's coming from top down, it's going to create the same highlight color as here as it does in the middle, because it's still that flat surface where light is coming straight down. Think of it like a shower.
Yeah.
If you put this in the shower, where's the water going to hit directly? It's going to fall here, the same way it's going to fall here. So light is going to treat these two places the same way, whereas a wash is going to fill that recess with a dark color.
Yep.
The sides swooping downward, those are going to be darker because light's not going to hit them as much in the same way. So,
yeah.
Nothing against washes, but I generally try to stay away from them if I'm painting something to kind of a higher quality so that it looks more real. And that's really all we're trying to do, is we're trying to make something really small look really big.
Yep. Such as what you did with your Imperial Fist right there.
Yeah, these guys are really fun.
I love the gradients that you do with the yellow.
Yeah.
And with the Tyranids, you also gotta talk about your color selection, because you made it go from this really poppy blue and red, which catches your eye, with also the yellow. But yellow tends to be very difficult to paint, people tell me all the time.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of tricks to it.
It's hard to get it right, because you can make it mustard, you can make it extremely bright like this, and then that's too much at some points.
So there's some tricks to it, and there's this kind of the reason I brought two of these models is specifically yellow. A lot of people have a lot of trouble with yellow.
Yep.
So I won't, part of the thing I wanted to talk about, and maybe I can help a little bit, and it also helps with a little bit of color theory and some ideas here. And there's some science involved, and I don't understand all of it. But so this model here,
I love it.
It's a Death Guard model from the Kill Team kit. Believe it or not, there's no green paint on the model.
There's no green.
There's no green paint on the model at all. In fact, the little yellow pustules, I know that's gross and I apologize, but the little pustules are like this golden yellow color. Those are the same 3 paints that I use to paint all the armor.
What?
Yes. So the trick is, if you have really thin yellow paint, it's 50% water, roughly. And I use like an ochre, something closer to this color and this color. And then I use some lighter versions of these, but same kind of tone. You thin them down really heavily, and then just put that thin paint right on top of black, and it looks green. So that is ultimately the reason why people have trouble painting yellow a lot of the time, is they're taking a model that they've primed black, and they're trying to paint an Imperial Fist.
Gotcha.
So because of these complications, people hate it, and they put 50 layers of paint on it, and they get frustrated, and they don't thin their paint enough because it's not covering at all.
Yep.
And they get frustrated, and it's chalky, and they have problems, and then they give up, and they don't want to paint anymore. So what I did here was I did not start with a black model. I started with red.
Red?
Magenta also works really well, like pink. And then I did a nice zenithal highlight of white through my airbrush. And then I hit it with a yellow see-through paint, completely transparent see-through paint, contrast paints or speed paints, whatever your favorite version of those things are.
Yeah.
And you can see like on some of the darker areas, you can still see some of the red poking through, and that's totally fine because that red color works really well.
See a lot on the foot there.
Yeah.
Yep.
It works really well as an interesting shadow on yellow.
Yeah.
And it's just a really creative way to make yellow super simple. And although these are Space Marines and it's easy to paint the whole thing at once, do it all red, do a zenithal, do it all yellow, and then paint in details. The same concept would work if I'm trying to just paint, let's say, the lion's shoulder. If I wanted that yellow for whatever reason, you can paint the rest of the model how you want. Then you can just base coat the piece you want red. And then you can use a brush or an airbrush, block things off if you wanted to get your white zenithal. Or it's not even really zenithal at that point. You're just highlighting it. So you would highlight it just as you would any other piece, but from red to white. There would be some pink tones in there. There's nothing wrong with that. You want those pink tones to create like gentle variations in your color of yellow. And then just throw your yellow contrast or see-through paints on top of that. And you'll end up with like a nice yellow model with interesting colors in the shadows.
I don't know if I can be heard for those mics. I just want to address a couple of things. So first of all, I'm really trying to get the picture best. It's best for our online viewers, but the camera thinks it's really smart. So from a distance it's great, but when I come close, it lights up everything. That the colors are like it's not what it is anymore. But it's doing my best. I already kind of adjusted here. I killed the light here, so
yes,
we'll see.
We'll post pictures. We'll post pictures.
I'm addressing few comments here. So. H1N1 says you broke his brain. But yeah, it's all the
I mean,
but also he has a wisdom there of it always looks bad until it doesn't anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes it's that, like you said, that last little bit.
Yeah, it's like it looks horrible until you get to like the 80 to 85% done. Then it starts to look better, and then at that last 5%, that's when the magic just happens.
Yeah, that is true for everything, but especially true when you're trying to paint the boogeyman, non-metallic metal.
Oh my god.
It's really just that last highlight that you put of pure white, like a dot highlight on the tip of an edge of one tooth in a chainsword or something like that.
Yep.
That really creates like the whole thing and it brings it all together.
It's just like a little...
Don't give up. Ding! Trust
there
the
you
process.
Go. Yep. Gotta trust the process.
Mike says, hey, Yuli.
Oh no.
He writes Yuli in Cyrillic. Russian. Don't ask me how I understand it, but yeah, he might think you have something to do with it.
Hi, Mike. Oh yeah. One thing that I also love that you did with the Space Marine is the OSL, the object source lighting.
Yes.
That's another boogeyman that people feel so scared of.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, if you have, and like you mentioned on your piece, the light source is not going to be hitting the face as much, but you want to be the center of attention. You have it so that the plasma gun is to the right of the leg, covering it, yet there's still some light on the left leg. And it's like, yes, because light bends.
Yeah.
And that's something that sometimes people think it's like from the center point, just a perfect circle, nothing else. But I saw that you did a good job on like making the edges brighter and then blending it in as it goes outwards, going to the red under the foot because you're not going to have light under the foot when
and I wish I did have my competition piece here with me because that's the best example of OSL that I have to this date. This is definitely a little bit. I think what sells the OSL is the fall off in color. There is an actual physics equation that I don't know how to do to figure out exactly how dark your light should be at a certain distances away from the light source. I don't think you need to know all that. I think you should know that it exists.
Yep.
So it's roughly every so often you drop by like 1/4 of the light source. So, but the main thing to take away from that is that your light source you need to make sure is the brightest thing in that OSL. So in the piece of the model that you are painting, you want maybe a touch of white. There's a little bit of white in the plasma gun here. In the lantern that's in the competition piece that pictures were shared, there is a really, really bright in the center of that lantern. And then the rest of the entire model, nothing else on the whole model is as bright as that center of that lantern. So as long as you focus and make sure that your light source is by far the lightest thing on the model, again, I cheated a little bit because the face is probably close to that. But
yeah,
if the light source is the brightest thing on the model, you're already going to do a good job selling your OSL, because that's really what you're trying to do. You're selling it. You're trying to get people to buy that this is the thing that's creating that light, and you make sure that you do enough fall off. There are a lot of other things you can do to help create the OSL and sell it. Metal, for instance, I learned while painting this piece. It was some advice from a painter, Eric Swenson, who's one of the best in the world. He helped me by some advice that he gave. When you have, at least in my piece, it was a really dark setting with the light coming from that lantern. When metal reflects light, it's going to be much brighter in a much smaller space, as opposed to something like the tunic of the zombie that I painted, the ghoul, whatever you want to call him, which was, overall, it was some slight variations in the shade on it, but nothing got quite as bright as the reflection on that metal, for sure. And then a little further away from the lantern on the other side of the piece, there's a little metal on this undead soldier's shoulder. I did do some pretty bright highlights. It was a little bit brighter, I think, than the tunic. Because that in a really, really small places, because that metal is going to reflect that light, even though it's much further away, just in a really small spot. Yeah,
and that's what we talked about previously, about using it to differentiate materials.
Exactly.
Because the leather is not going to reflect as brightly or with the same pattern as the metal, which is not going to reflect the same as skin. Whether it's dead skin or alive skin.
Right, true. And a tunic is maybe even less reflective than the leather is, which isn't as reflected as the metal. Reflective as the metal is.
Exactly. So there's a lot of things to keep in mind. You got to think of like almost on a 4D level, but it is the building blocks that let you go even further. You got to think about it like that and always use references. One thing that I've been told by a lot of times, brush for hire. I remember last year we were like up late talking, and he just told me like, yeah, just get some reference photos. He just showed me like some stuff he had, and I was like, that has like nothing to do with what you're painting, but the colors are cool enough. And then as we were just talking, he was just like, I have an idea. I'm not gonna hunt to paint that angel. I'm like, oh, he's painting some kind of angel piece. Cool. Fast forward a few months later, he starts posting pictures, and I was like, oh my god. He had like some random photo with some crazy colors, and that's all that it was to it.
Yeah, knowing him, it's wild.
It was insane.
And
I'm just like, there you go.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to do research. And
on my competition piece, I took it again. So I said Eric Swenson before. I'll say it again because he painted the box art for the model that I painted. The model's from Hera Models. It's called Andres, and Eric Swenson painted the box art for it. And I was kind of imitating in my own way his box art for the model. So shout out to Eric Swenson, amazing painter. I definitely want to give credit because I painted something similar to his box art, or was trying to. My mistake was, as an apprentice level painter, trying to pick Eric Swenson to imitate one of the best painters in the world.
Pretty common mistake.
Some advice that I got from him to take a reference photo, as we were talking about, I took some very specific ones where the lantern, I took my model, it was primed all in black, so it was very reflective before I did any highlighting with an airbrush and zenithal and placing my sketches and all kinds of stuff. It was just black. And I held a lighter in my dark bathroom to where the lantern is supposed to be. And then I awkwardly tried to take pictures with my phone to see where the light would fall. And it's going to be a similar color to what the lantern would be. And then I took a flashlight from behind the model in the same bathroom, and I just shined the flashlight where the moonlight's going to come in from the back to kind of create this spectral highlight that goes across the stone tiles on the floor that you can see in the model.
A bit on the back of the head too. That was cool.
Yep. And then there's a rim highlighting all around the shape of the model in that turquoise blue color. But and that was all came from this reference photos that I took. So definitely take reference photos for like an elevated painting style when you can. It's never gonna hurt. It's only gonna help you.
So get a lighter, get a flashlight, get in the bathroom, turn off the lights, don't look like a maniac, and you'll be okay. Yeah. I want to say that jokingly, but there was a piece that I had done some testing with the speed paints with, and it's Trench Crusade. I painted them like Full Metal Alchemist, because, there you go. Love it. It's so fun. And I was like, how do I simulate metal without trying to make it metallic? So I did the same thing you did with the whole painting nice and glossy black and do the lights, but I was like, metal doesn't reflect the same.
Yeah.
So I grabbed an actual aluminum paint, did it all into aluminum. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be my reflections. There we go, awesome. Put it aside. Grabbed the one that's painted black. I'm like, I'm gonna put that on here.
Right.
And it was interesting how like straight line more metallics are versus every other material.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's something to keep in mind there. That was very engaging, interesting.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much all my experience at Capital Palette. We talked a lot about painting. Maybe we should try some of it.
I mean, we could. We do have a little Halloween event going on. Yeah. With a little pumpkin witch Atom. Atom is our mascot. I love this octopus so much. Autumn got an artist to do. They put a little bat seeds. You can remove the bats and paint them separately, but the back, it's a full-on pumpkin. Pumpkin butt. So
yeah, I think I'm gonna take this one home for my spray gunner painting competition.
I would not blame you, especially since you already got some colors to get started with in here.
Yeah, I just picked some stuff that I know people like yellow. People have trouble painting orange.
Yeah.
And we're painting a pumpkin, so I thought it would be good to paint some of this the way that I would try to just do it at home, and hopefully we make some mistakes, and I'm sure I will.
Yep.
So that we can try to fix them.
Yep, and that's the thing that I've learned. That's another thing I've learned from a lot of like artists. It's not how good you are doing the job. It's how good are you at fixing the mistakes and hiding them while also being good at doing the job. I'm like, that's a very important step.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start with brown is a great color to start with. It's gonna cover a lot better than starting with a darker orange color would. And I'm just gonna work my way up. We have 4 colors here. I think a lot of people don't want to use more than one color to paint one part of a model, or they think, which is not a mistake necessarily, but there are better ways to do it, where they think they can take, okay, I want to paint this orange, and I know I need to do some highlights, so here's my white, and I'm going to mix in some white to this orange, and I'm going to try to make it brighter to highlight it up. Unfortunately, when you mix white paint with mostly any other chromatic color in the world of paint, you're going to end up with a much more achromatic, desaturated color. That's not going to be it's not going to be brighter necessarily. It's going to be more dull. It will be a lighter tone, but it will be more dull, if that makes sense. So I'm going to start with a brown because it's nice and rich.
Yep. Also, colors are not like a X and Y axis. It's like a X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Because you can go how bright is it versus how dull is it versus a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and this is just going to be a bit, and you can start with, you don't have to start with brown. I think it's going to be a nice undertone if I keep some of the brown in the shadows. But if you want one interesting way to paint models, if I can pull an example.
I believe in you.
You can see I painted, the underpainting on these was red and blue. I just picked off my shelf 2 bright, vibrant colors as my shadow color, even though it's not darker than my midtone.
That has nothing to do with the minis either.
It doesn't. No, and it was arbitrary. They're just 2 colors that I liked off the shelf, and all I was trying to do was create something interesting. So in my unified army, I have this blue and red in all the shadows of the color of the whole army, and it just makes it more interesting to look at. And because you're painting midtones and highlights of whatever the material end result is going to be, you're still going to end up with the color you want. You just have this cool, interesting color in the shadows. So if you didn't want to do brown for this pumpkin, you could do red or blue or turquoise or green or magenta or whatever you want. You don't have to pick just a darker version of whatever color it is you're trying to paint. I have a wet palette here. I've got my brown paint on it. I'm going to take a brush full of water, and I'm going to mix that in here to get a much thinned down color. This is one of the things I think, it's probably the first piece of advice people get when they start painting something like Warhammer or a competition piece or anything, is you need to thin your paints. If I just, that being said, Atom paints are a great consistency, and I probably wouldn't have too much trouble if I just put this on the model. But there are paints out there where if you just put your brown paint on the model, you might end up with big, thick brush strokes. It might end up chalky. Paint has pigment in it. It's made of 3 things. There's a binder, a medium, and a pigment. And depending on the paints, that pigment powder can be visible. So when you're layering on 1 or 2 thick coats of undiluted paint, you might end up with a chalky textured surface, and that's why that happens. It's because you just need to thin your paint a little bit. So
yep.
And I'm sure everyone that's ever painted a model and showed somebody has heard, oh, you should thin that a little more. And the other thing you'll see me do is, now that this paint is really nice and runny, you can see me go dab it off. because even though I thinned my paint, if I just put this on the model now, because I thinned the paint so much, it's just going to run everywhere. So I'm just dabbing it off to get some of the excess off, and now I have just as much paint as I want on the brush. So I'm just going to like start sloppily making sure I get into the recesses. So I make sure, because I paint like a goblin usually, I want to make sure the camera can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to layer this on. I'm trying not to let it pool anywhere. And I'm just going to do a nice, and I'll probably, we'll have to talk in between drying, but this will take a couple coats to completely cover.
Oh yeah. One thing I do like to mention to people too is sometimes you get the paint and you don't thin it enough, and it's like, oh, it's not going into the recesses. It's like, well, you do gotta go back, do a thin coat, and if you think it's too runny, I've seen a lot of people just put it on their skin and see like how does it react on your skin or on your nail.
I do that a lot.
Yep, and it's just like give it a quick little test, and if you're like, oh no, I'm getting painted, what am I gonna do? Wash your hands. This is acrylic. This isn't like something crazy that's gonna stick to your nail forever, you know?
100%. Paint's not gonna hurt you. Acrylic paint's not gonna hurt you.
Exactly.
I wouldn't eat it. I wouldn't like drink out of the bottle anyway.
Yeah, no. Sometimes we drink out of the cup though, but we don't talk about that yet.
Yeah,
we don't talk about that.
I almost did that earlier. We didn't talk about that before we started filming.
That's what I was like. Is this your cup or is that your cup?
Yeah. There we go. So I'm just getting a nice, I won't obviously paint the whole pumpkin here on the thing because I want it to nice and dry. Usually by the time I finish base coating one part of the model, I'll move on to the next one. And by the time I finish the second base coat on a model, I can go back and do my second coat on the first thing I base coated. So we're just gonna, like, and this is pretty sloppy. There's not a lot of technique here. You just want to get, I'm kind of avoiding all of the insides of the eyes and the mouth. Even though, like you said, it's acrylic paint, I could just paint over it.
Exactly.
It's not that big a deal.
Yeah. One thing that I also want to mention too is that sometimes people start and they're like, oh, that's not the color that I thought it would be. Because when it's wet, it looks different than when it gets dried up.
Yes.
Like dried up, it loses the gloss. Sometimes it loses some color. It's like, that's okay. You're building up the layers. Right now, we're using black on that to prime because it's nice, glossy, and it works. And also, I just like that black a lot. It's really good for helping me focus, like, where do I want the highlights to be?
Yeah, this is actually a fantastic primer. I don't know what you use, but
it's one shot from Ammo, man. It's wonderful.
Yeah, so we're just gonna let that dry for a minute. I think with this model, like I said, I'm gonna steal this and take it home as my competition piece. I think what I'll probably do at home is I will create some OSL on this piece. I think I'll make from the inside of the jack-o'-lantern, like the jack-o'-lantern's glowing. And I'll just talk about it since I'm not gonna do it all here, but I would start by just painting the inside of the eyes white. You just start with a really bright color, and then I would add a bit of like yellow and then a bit of orange on the outside of it. And just like I said before, I'm just gonna make sure that it's the brightest thing. And because it's coming from inside of the pumpkin though, I probably won't do any kind of OSL effect really on the outside of the pumpkin much, except for maybe right around these eyes here, because like it's coming from the inside. The call is coming from inside the house. The light's coming from the inside, so it's just not going to, light wouldn't somehow get on top of the pumpkin here. Light wouldn't bend its way outwards. So if you're creating something with, let's say you have a sensor or some lantern or something like that with a metal cage on the outside of it, you're gonna, the outside of that metal cage is probably gonna be very dark compared to what's on the inside of it. And you may want to paint it black or close to black just to show how bright the thing is on the inside. So that's probably something I would do.
Yeah. One thing that I've heard a lot too is avoid painting colors black. Black is a really like, it dampens all the color around it and it just hides a lot of the work. Use really dark blues, really dark reds that is close to the black, not quite there to the black. So black will just, it's going to stand out no matter what you try to put around it. Even if you have just a few lines of it, it is really strong with the contrast.
Right. We just talked about how if I were to try to paint an orange pumpkin with using only orange and white paint, I might have a lot of trouble with those bright colors.
Yeah.
It's the same case if I tried to paint the shadows using orange and black. You're going to have the same issue. It's going to mix and you're going to get kind of a ruddy, desaturated, end up with a ruddy, desaturated color. So like you said, I'm always highlighting in something close to an ice yellow color and I'm darkening things and using shadow color somewhere around a really, really, really dark purple or something like that. Cool colors are great for shadows because we typically paint things just by nature in a warm light. The sun is warm. We visualize things in a warm light. That's just how as humans, we've always seen things. And if you're out in the sun, The sun is a warm light, so it's just what we appropriate with that color. So it's good. It adds more contrast in a way without just light to dark. If you use a warm color for your highlights and you use cool colors for your shadows, it's another really great way to make your models more appealing. Yep. We're pretty dry here, so I'm just going to start
yep.
this coat.
So may I ask you?
It is that quickly.
You mentioned how you were priming and putting base color on the models to lower the different colors.
Yeah.
And this is prime black because of course Yuli, and we have to deal with Yuli. There's no way around it.
Yeah. No
What would you paint it first if you would do it from the resins from scratch?
That's a great question. I think ultimately, I think the answer, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I think it's a great idea. You could do anything, but since this is a Halloween piece, you could do something like paint it with some purples from below and maybe do a zenithal with like a green paint with an airbrush from above and just paint all your normal colors on top of that. And then from the top, you're going to have these like interesting green tones from the top and these purple tones from underneath. So that could be really interesting. It's just another option. I just think that when you're first learning, you may be scared to try things.
Yep.
And I just don't think there's a wrong answer. You can paint the shadows whatever color you want. They do not have to be black, like you said. Mm-hmm. They don't even have to be purple and dark. You could paint a brighter, warm color opposed to what I said earlier for your shadows if you wanted to. I think it's important to try things and not be afraid of putting paint on models.
Yep. Oh, you mean like the little ghosties that I have sitting on the shelf over there with all those random fluorescent colors?
Yeah, your neon ghost. Sorry,
my neon ghosties.
I'm hiding the model again.
Yeah, you good. And to clarify, I mainly wanted to do a black, that way you could see the coverage of the atom and the ionic paints. Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes when you do you prime a black, the colors, you have to do a lot of layers, or you have to do gradients onto it of lighter colors to then get to the colors that you want. It doesn't come out right out the bottle.
Yeah.
But this is a pretty nice black, and that it's like what, rust color? It's called rust. It looks dark brown enough.
Yep.
2 coats and you're already getting close to the colors that you get out of the bottle.
Yeah, and when I grabbed these off the shelf to do this today, I wasn't thinking too hard about it because I know that this brown color is going to be my shadow color, and when we do the next layer, as you see, I'm going to cover up most of it. Mm-hmm. I just wanted something nice and interesting, and I picked this one because it was kind of rich. It was kind of a rich color, so I knew it was going to create an interesting shadow color, and I can build on top of that, and it's going to be good for doing that. So I've just painted kind of the top. Part of the reason I did that is because this is going to end up being brighter because I painted another layer on it, and this brown color, this rust color, is brighter than the black, obviously. So down here, this is going to be nice and dark, and it's in the shadow, so you can use that to your advantage and create, using thin paint without mixing it. I've created more of a dark rust color and a bright rust color. So
yep. You made your gradient by just using 2 coats.
Yep. I'm just going to
look at that.
Yeah. So while this is drying, I'm going to start adding in the next layer, and then we can show how we use layers to create some highlights using volumes.
Yep.
And I think everyone's seen pictures of art school when they start with any middle school art, I can't remember, where you draw a picture of your ball.
Yep.
Right? And you create, there's a highlight here and there's a gradient.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some on the wall over there that are the same thing. You guys did those with airbrushes?
Yeah, that's what we did those to, just testing to showcase like different needle sizes and such.
Oh, excellent.
And it works pretty well.
Yeah, so there's a ball in middle school, like I said, whatever. There's a ball, you have your highlight here, and then there's a gradient to your dark color, and sometimes there's a reflection. So it's a little bit brighter on the opposite side. So everyone's seen that picture. Most people have created that picture.
Guilty.
So that's what we're going to do. So everything we paint is one of a few basic shapes. And we can use that ball or that cylinder or that square and pretend our shapes on our model are one of those things, starting with the big shapes. So the pumpkin is kind of a big ball. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to work my way up. And you can kind of see that, although they're kind of triangular, each one of these little ribs of the pumpkin, the squash, are kind of a cylinder. I know they're smaller at the bottom and wider at the top, but you can think of them as if they were a cylinder that just gets squished a little bit at the top.
Yeah.
And you can use the same highlighting that we would do on a cylinder, which I'll do in just a moment here. So
yeah,
I've got my paint on here.
Oh, since I'm seeing it from this angle, but
yeah,
you can see for the hat, just turning it around real quick.
Oh yeah.
Like you can see for where the highlights are, like you were talking about, just using the light source as an example. If we move it a little bit further back, the shadows show up a little bit more. I'm not sure if you can see it from that. Yeah, there you go. So just the environmental, like we have good set of lights in here. That's already enough to give you an idea of where to put the highlights and where not to.
Yeah, great point.
Yep. Something I tell people for the classes, which, yes, we do have intro to airbrushing and intermediate classes. In the intermediate class, I'm like, do you want an example? Okay, put your hand up, and then there you go. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, the highest point of light source is right here. You have the shadows all in here. You don't want to be spraying or putting colors on the recesses unless you're doing shadows.
Right.
If you want to get this side over here, focus at an angle away from there.
Yeah.
Because color doesn't look bright in the darkness.
Yeah, so
that's a good method there.
Load up my brush here.
Hit it.
And using the volumes like we just talked about, I'm going to pretend the light's coming from our normal 45-degree angle, roughly, maybe 60. But we're going to go from the top down slightly to the front. So the light's going to be hitting roughly here. So I'll just start there. And I'm going to follow the volumes. And I'm going to cover about somewhere between 75 and 90% of the brown that I already painted with this color, and leaving that brown just in the darker areas. You can see, oh, there we go, I made a mistake. I had a little bit too much water in the brush, and you can see that it dripped. So I didn't dab it out enough, I dripped it, and I put some right here. So, but what you can do is get some of it out by using a nice clean brush. I rinsed it out, I got the water out of it, and it acts as a sponge, and it's going to get some of the color out of there. So good. We'll make lots of mistakes, that's fine.
Yep.
I think that's one thing YouTube tutorials don't do enough, is show that the people making those tutorials are also making mistakes and then how to fix them.
Or the prep.
Yeah.
Like, how do you prepare this piece? So we got to do this, got to get that set up.
So
wash your pieces.
I'm going to cover the light's coming from this angle, so it's going to get all the way into this crevice because the light's hitting there. But when I paint the front of this, I think the light, when the light hits, it's probably not going to get the back side of this ridge, if you can see that. So I'm going to leave just a little bit of that brown in there and pretend the light's far enough in the front where it's not going to hit. I may change my mind later if I'm looking at it, but we'll start there.
And that's a good thing about doing it this way. You can literally go, I changed my mind. You have all the colors that you already used. You can just go back and do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the mistake some people might make when they're painting, for instance, muscles on a model, on a Warhammer model, like a Space Marine with no sleeves, Scouts they're called, I think.
Yeah, or Angron.
Or Angron. So if we pretend this is a bicep to a tricep or two muscles on an arm, the paint's gonna reach right into the crevice, and right here where there's not much of a gap, a ridge between the two, I'm gonna connect them. Because what happens sometimes is people will paint this spot here and then this spot here with a brown gap or their shadow color gap in between, and then they'll highlight it up each section. So you're gonna end up with like two distinct parts that don't look like they're connected at all. And on this pumpkin and on the muscles of an arm, you end up with what we call muscle islands, when in truth, the muscles on the body are all connected. So there are parts when that shadow is going to, the highlights are going to connect.
Good for robots, not for organics. Got it.
Cool. So it's already starting to look a little orange to me, which is great because we picked this nice like ochre color and this rust color on top of this black.
One thing, like I know I already said it, but wait till you get to the second thin coat at the very least before making a judgment on the colors and how you're spraying it, because the very first coat is always going to look uneven. It's going to look a little off to you. Second coat, that's when the color really starts to settle in and it adheres to the first layer, and then you see more of the color.
Yeah, and sometimes when I'm using that same logic, sometimes when I'm painting something to a really high level, like my competition piece, you might even want to wait a whole day.
Yep.
Because acrylic paint usually settles over 24 hours. It's going to look almost identical after an hour. Yeah. Or even half an hour. But the next day is when you know for sure that this is the true color of this paint and this is what it's going to look like with the undercoat and all that stuff. So just going to let it dry here as we continue to chat about it.
Yep.
So what we've already done though is we've painted our base coat and we've created a layer. So this is what we're doing. We're creating layers. And as we go brighter and brighter, we're going to cover less and less space, focusing on where that light's going to hit. And that's what's going to create our volumes. You can do as many layers as you want, getting closer and closer to each one, so with less and less space between each layer, if that makes sense. And that's going to create a much more easy transition from your dark colors to your light colors. It'll look like you've blended it, like as if it were oil paints. Or if you want to, but that takes a lot of time because you have to mix up all those colors. Like for instance, I could have mixed these up and mixed this rust color and this ochre color, and we could have done a layer between these two and covered even less space between those layers. And then I could take my next highlight color and mix these two. And I can even do, 70% this color and only 30% the next highlight color, and then 50-50. So you can create as many layers as you want to using this transition from a dark color to your highlight color. And to make that transition, that blend more gradual. Or if you're painting something really quickly, I think on, like for instance, on the Star Wars Rebels, I think I only had, there's like 3 colors. There's like 3 highlight colors. There's like there's my base coat, which is like weird red or weird blue. And then I did my mid-tone, and then I did 1 highlight, and then I did 1 very small highlight on top of that. So I wanted to paint these really quickly. So it depends on what your goal is.
I love that they feel very colorful and like the detail still pops out.
Yeah.
Even though it feels like this guy have a blue head and this one's have a red head, the uniform still looks really, really solid.
I'm just going to really quickly get this other coat of ochre on here looking orange.
A lot of times people worry about how the edges, like the colors are so separated. What do you recommend about that?
I think if you think it's a problem, one, you might want to wait. Get some more layers on there, get some more highlights on there, and see from a distance, what does it look like? Does it look like they're disjointed, like it's not the same thing, not the same piece of material? Or does it just look like I have a really quick highlight up and the shadows are a different color? But what you can do to fix it, if you do that and you're like, no, it still looks like it's kind of broken, or I don't like it's disjointed, the gradient isn't slow enough. Do what I said earlier, mix these colors up. Do that first layer in a mix of your 2 colors, or a third color if you want to use a different paint, that's fine. But find a tone that's between your 2 colors and do a layer between those 2, and then get to your next color that you wanted to create that more gradual look. So if your transition from one layer to another is far too jarring, just add another layer in there with more of an in-between color. That definitely happens. But also keep in mind, if it's for tabletop, that you're looking at these things 6 feet away, and it's probably fine.
Yeah, that's another thing. I do hear the test of like, stretch out your arm and check out the piece. If you still see errors, if you still see color problems, yes, go ahead and work on it. Otherwise, no one's gonna be like, I see that your creek here is it's got a little bit too much of the brown on the pants. And actually, no one's gonna do that. And if they do, please don't go to the local tournaments. Nobody likes that.
Yeah. So my midtone ended up. I'm really happy with the way my midtone came out with this. It was just called Rust. So old Rust, and then Rust. It's actually ended up being, this is one of those happy mistakes where it ended up being much more orange on the model than I was intending it to be. I love it. I don't have a problem with that. So now I'm going to do my first highlight layer. I think I would probably do another coat of this color. There is some unevenness, but for the sake of the video and showing how we do layers, I'll just continue and pretend that we've got our full even coat on here. Because I'm happy with this orange color that we have on here. I think my next color, my highlight color, is actually going to end up being a bit too yellow. So I think to fix that, I'm working on the fly here. I'm going to add a little bit of orange to my palette here. I'm going to mix these two up.
Mix it up.
Yeah, with a little bit of water so that I add some of that orange into that yellow and get more of an orange color for my first highlight. And then I'll probably do just the base orange for my last highlight color. And like I said, you can mix these colors to create more in-between layers if you want a more gradual gradient. I could have a lot more colors on this palette.
So then I want to bring up too, for people that be looking, you don't need to use fine detail brush to do a lot of this base work.
I didn't mention that.
Yeah, and you do not need to have like a $30, $50 brush just to do the bases.
Yeah.
Once you get close with the detail, you want that fine quality.
Yeah.
But before that, we're using a synthetic brush. This is a no-name set.
A no-name. You guys gave me this, but this you can see this is like a size 4 or something. It's pretty
like
big.
Like a 6.
A 6, yeah. So it's a massive brush. I think that I typically work with like 2 or 3. So I paint with pretty big brushes. I think my competition piece was entirely painted in a 3.
That makes sense.
And I know brands depend on the size of the brush, depending on the in comparison to the number. Doesn't really mean much, but as a general rule, you can probably use a bigger brush than you think you do. I typically like to use a bigger brush because it holds more paint.
Yes.
So I don't have to keep going back to my palette, picking up more paint.
Yep. One other thing on that one too is not loading up the brush too much with the paint, not just with the water. Because I've seen people that they have the brush and the paint's like all the way to the metal base.
Yeah.
You do not need it to reach all the way to the metal base. Like halfway point or just towards the beginning, you're okay with that. Because if paint gets inside of here, it's gonna start making the bristles spread out. This was a 2 at one point. It is really fuzzy right now because the paint has gotten inside of the body. I use this as a base color because why not? We're doing miniatures. That's bigger than a mini.
Yeah.
But it still works.
Yeah, this is pretty big, so I've got some leeway here. So for this next layer, you can easily see that I'm just picking out a slightly smaller space than I did before and painting it in a smaller area so that some of that mid-tone color, that ochre, or I'm sorry, it was called just regular rust.
Just rust, yeah.
Some of that rust is showing through underneath the highlight layer I'm painting now.
Love it. Also, don't follow name guides with the paints. Just go by the color that you see. Because, yes, he used old rust and rust on a pumpkin.
Yeah.
And it's working.
I'm not painting an old car.
Exactly.
I'm painting a pumpkin. And I used rust. Yeah, I didn't, like I was just saying it was called ochre. I didn't know the name of the paint. I was just painting.
Yeah, you're like, I like this color. I'm going to use this one. Exactly. There you go.
So, smaller space. Continuing. I'll do another layer on here in a perfect world.
Unless it's royal purple, then like absolutely, yes, that's one of my favorite colors. I'm just saying, royal purple, let's go.
Perfect. And you can start to see, it's starting already. You can see the brown color underneath and the mid-tone rust, and then my first highlight, it's starting to create this gentle transition between colors. Cool. So we're layering. Really good. We're doing it. Yeah, it's starting to, for sure. It's pretty basic. What we're doing is really simple. There's lots of things you can do when you're done. So some people might see, if this isn't for tabletop, if you're painting something to what you want to be a higher quality for yourself or for others, right now I can see the layers between these colors.
Yep.
If I'm painting something for the table, I'll leave it that way. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if it's for a competition, you might want to blend those layers together. And there are a lot of ways to do that. I think the most typical way to do that, and it scares people, but the easiest way to do that is by glazing. So glazing is just creating a very thin down paint, much more thin than I have here. It's basically dirty paint water in the color that you want. And you would brush it, and we can do this in a minute after I get another layer on here, but you would brush your glaze, and you want to definitely, I said before, you want to get the most of the excess off. You definitely want to do that when glazing because you're going to end up with a lot of water. So if you dab into your glaze on your wet palette, put it on your model, it's going to go everywhere because it's water. It's basically water.
Yeah.
Capillary reaction is going to take over. Reaction is going to take over, and it's going to go everywhere. Okay, pretty dry here. And the good thing is, I think something that Sam Lins told me when I was up at Nova this year, another amazing painter.
Oh, yes.
Who gave me some super valuable feedback on my piece. He said, when you get to your end of your highlights, you're so close to being done, you've already spent 100 hours on a model, conservatively. That last layer to push that highlight up is in such a small space that it's only going to take you 10 minutes. And it's going to make a 50% of a difference to the end result. So when you get to the very end, as I'm working through it, I'm creating smaller and smaller layers, and it's going to be faster and faster and faster. So it may feel like this project's going to take forever and be daunting when you start, but by the end of it, like this last layer went by pretty quick, and it's drying pretty quick because it's in a smaller space. I am painting away from me, so it is a little challenging, but we're doing it. We're doing it live.
Yep. We're doing it live. Let's go.
Awesome. So it's working. It's looking the way I wanted it to. Very spooky.
Spooky, scary pumpkin face.
Yeah. Excellent.
Loving it.
Yeah, and I would probably do, like I said, another coat on here. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3. The lighter you get, especially with oranges, reds, and yellows. Those warm, light colors. It might take 2 or 3 thin layers to get that full coverage that you're looking for. But keep in mind, if you're going to keep doing layers on top of it, you may skip a layer.
Makes sense, makes sense.
While we're waiting for the paint to dry, I just want to say a few words. First of all, I'm learning a lot too. I would probably prime it in black, same as Yuli did, because I would know better than that. And sometimes people ask me, like, what's the reason to paint? I know, to have the primer in different color, and I had 2 reasons for it, but it was not what we just learned, so I have 3 reasons now. And speaking of that, we have the Titan primers, which are great primer, but we had so much overstock in the colored versions, because nobody's buying them really, because everybody's after, black and whites. We got some really nice price offers there. So before everybody else figured it out, like I said, advise you to take advantage of those discounts and get some time primers. They were great, and you don't have to clean airbrush because you can just use the spray can.
Yep.
Also, Yuli here is actually great, and we are having classes every month, which she's teaching. I think the next one is going to be, I forgot when, I think it's like...
It's going to be the intermediate level, where I will show people how to do volumetric highlights, such as it on this guy, followed up with transparent paints, how to use the center point of the lights how to use the center points of lights to simulate the materials, what we were talking about using on a brush, but on an airbrush, because this tentacle doesn't read the exact same as the weird horn. These are mandibles from some giant kid, as it does on the mask. Like from the mask to the skull to the tentacle, that odd little gradient changes where the light's supposed to be focusing on will read differently.
They already look like different materials in black and white.
Exactly.
So, yeah, as you put layers on top of it, yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I love painting like this, because it's a lot of work. But then when you put the transparent paint, it's like, oh wow, that makes a difference. It's like, yes.
Well, again, we have those classes every month, so check our calendar, come and learn. And also for Spencer, actually, so he does commission pieces. And you guys, if you want to do it, I mean, the price just doubled because of all the awards there. So you should understand that. But next year, you're going to triple because you're going to win more awards in the Journeyman now. So you better, we have his Instagram on the title of this video, and also going to put in the description. So, make sure to reach out if you want a really cool army or some just cool pieces for a collection.
Here we go.
Cool. And I think the last thing I'll do here, obviously this is, you can see some unevenness and stuff. You can create more layers, but for expediency's sake, I don't want to spend here an hour base coating a model and doing like 3 highlights. So I think the next thing I want to show is how I would maybe blend up some of these colors. So now I will take a smaller brush. Probably go for...
That's a 1.
A 1. I'll take a 1. That's fine.
I have a better 2 if you want to.
No, that's okay. This is good. And then the first thing I want to do is you want to, when you're glazing, you're going to have some pigments in your brush, mostly water. And the direction that you stroke your brush into, you're going to deposit the most of those pigments at the end of your brush stroke. So whatever color you have in your brush, I'm going to start with, typically you want to glaze down, not glaze up. It's harder to glaze things brighter than it is to glaze darker. You can do it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with my darkest color, and I'm going to try to, I have this layer here. I have a couple of these, you can see a couple of these of my mid-tone layers.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to glaze those down into my base coat layer, this like brown shadow. Old rust shadow.
There you
go. I have a little bit of paint here, not a lot. It's already thinned. I'm going to thin it way more. So you can see it's dirty paint water. There's not much here. You can test it. A lot of people will test it by, I'm gonna get some of the water out of it, but I still have the pigments and some of the water in my brush. And a lot of people will test it by glazing onto their fingernail. And you can see that that is almost nothing. There's still a little paint in there. And then we're gonna do, it may take 5 layers of glazing. It may take more, it may take less, but you're just going to do as many as you need. It depends a lot, unfortunately, based on which colors you're painting and what you're trying to do, but eventually you'll just get it to the point where you're like, okay, perfect. I can barely see the transition between those 2 colors anymore. So I'm going to take this glaze again, since I was talking through it and some of it dried. And I'm going to brush, I'm going to start in my mid-tone and brush that glaze into my shadow color. And it's not going to make hardly any difference at all and you're barely going to see it, and you're going to say, what am I even doing? Wasting all this time glazing, and it's not having any result. But once you get the third, fourth, or fifth layer down, you'll start to see, or I guess you'll start to not see the difference between those two layers of colors anymore, because you have successfully blended that transition between them.
I was gonna say leave one side untouched, that way you have a good contrast of, oh, it makes a difference.
Smart man. Smart man.
Ended up doing that with a Gundam from just prime with the basic colors, just black all the way to a finished side with a highlight.
Yeah.
It was a project, I tell you what, but it was worth it. It was definitely worth it.
Yeah, and luckily, typically, when you're glazing like this, it does dry relatively quickly compared to big, thick acrylic paint on your base coat.
So. Yep.
Yeah, let's address the question while we're waiting. So the Nico is asking, is it better to over-highlight and tone down later or build up slowly? What's the go-to easiest way to tone down?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so I think, again, I hate to say, it depends, but it depends on what your end goal is. I think it's usually easier to add than it is to take away. So if that is true, then it is easier to not highlight as much and then add more later if you think you need it. That being said, I think when I'm looking at models, other people's models, if somebody's asking me for what I think about a piece, usually my answer is always, you can go brighter, punch higher. You can almost always punch a little bit higher in your highlights than you think you can. Whether that means go straight to a white or an ice yellow in your brightest highlights, or add a couple more layers of barely changing the shade of your color by mixing in your next highlight layer color, just adding in a little bit at a time and creating more and more layers building up. So yeah, I think like I said, it's easier to add than it is to take away, but you can probably go a lot brighter than you currently are, or you think is good. You can probably go brighter.
Yep. One thing I learned from Sactical Miniatures with Villainy Inks is that they do the base work a lot brighter, like way brighter than you think it should be for grimdark, because once you put the wash and the filters and such on top, it like darkens those highlights.
Yeah, that is true.
That's something to keep in mind if you're
washing.
If you're doing washes, filters, anything like that, go way brighter because it will darken. But in this case, we're going way brighter the other way. So we want this pumpkin to be seen across the room. And that's one thing I really like about the Ionic paints and the Atom ones, especially Ionic. They're so heavily pigmented that just a few brush strokes of a bright color will pop.
Yeah.
It's
really bright.
I had an orc from Kill Team that when Ionic paints we first got to play with them 2 years ago, I used just a few touches here and there, no problem, and I did the entire electric bolt off the backpack on their yellow, just pure yellow. And to this day, you turn that guy around and you can just see him across the room.
That's great. Yeah.
And I'm like,
that's
yep,
what you want.
That's exactly what you want. No other color matters. It's just all of that yellow.
I'm gonna fix a little bit of my mistake from before.
We have Ian Hamilton. It's the ammo guy actually. Tuned in asking, what's the subject being painted? Can you explain what's the subject being painted?
We have a little subject here. Is the Halloween Atom, which we are releasing with a little contest. They'll see who can make the craziest paint with this. Not really. It's just we have a little contest where you're gonna buy one. It gets to you. You get a code that gets you like, hey, you get the mini for free. Welcome to the contest. We'll be announcing who the judges are later. Don't worry about that. And it is the deadline for Halloween. You can use any colors you want, but the purpose is just to have some fun with it, you know? Get the ball rolling, get more artists engaged, because it's always fun to be like, what am I going to paint next? There's so many options. Here's a cool pumpkin Halloween octopus with little bats, statues, and you can use it because it's an airbrush holder.
Yeah, it's an airbrush holder. So I'm going to use it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can already start to see, it's going to take a couple more layers, but you can definitely, especially up here, doing the glaze is really working up here. That mid-tone and that shadow color is starting to blend together nicely.
Show the other side so to see the contrast.
And you can see some major contrast if you look here, and you can see like the difference between this mid-tone and this shadow color is pretty stark difference. And over here, you can see it's starting to blend together. So a couple more layers, we'll probably have it. I'll probably move on to the next layer for expediency's sake again. So I'm going to get into here and get into my first or my mid-tone color.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep saying mid-tone, and I just so people, in case, I think I didn't know for a long time, and I was like, oh yeah, mid-tone, totally. And I didn't actually know what people were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Your shadow color is your shadow color. It's where the light isn't reaching, and what color is the model. Your mid-tone is what is the color of the material that you're painting.
Mm-hmm.
So my shirt's kind of a, let's just say brown for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
The mid-tone of this, I would want it to be a brown color.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want the object to read as, basically? And then your highlights are a lighter version of that color, usually, not always. We're just working your way up. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times you see that people hate painting jeans because you have to get that denim, you have to get the denim material to read like the material.
Yeah.
But then once you paint it, you're like, yeah, it looks just like the one that I'm wearing. It's not quite there. And they have to come even closer, like you said, less spaces, higher color, just a little bit.
Yeah.
All those little scratches, the fadedness.
Yeah, and with
it looks incredible.
With denim, it's the same thing as a lot of cloth. It's just not very reflective.
Yep.
So when painting cloth, most fabric-y materials, you're probably not going to go. Your highlights aren't going to be as bright as if I was painting something that's more reflective. Skin is pretty reflective, so skin tones you usually get pretty light with your highlights. Metal, obviously, get to almost white usually.
And that's one thing I like about once you're done with a piece, going over with like a gloss, a satin, and a matte, depending on the material. Because if you want it to be even that next level, you do a gloss and it's going to be a lot shinier than it is. Even if you use like satin colors, and then that will contrast a lot with the not glossy parts.
Yeah, it's true.
Play around with that sometimes, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to try it out. It's just one thin coat anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So now what I'm doing, just like I was trying to blend my shadow color into my midtone, I have my midtone color, and I'm pushing from both directions, from the shadow into the midtone and from the highlight into the midtone. Just pushing those pigments where I want them to settle. And I would just do a couple layers of this, and the same way we did it before, we'll just start to create and kind of fade and blurry those blends. Or those, the lines between those two colors to create a blend.
Nice. One other thing I also hear often is, what's the difference between a wash and a
glaze?
A glaze. Thank you. Yeah, I'm like what left me.
Yeah,
the glaze.
That's a great point, and it's something I wanted to talk about today, and I haven't brought it up really. Is like,
I got you.
Something I hear something I hear all the time is, how thin should I make my paints? There is no. Again, I said it earlier, but I hate to say there's no, like, here's what you do. This is exactly the steps you need to take to get the solution to what you're looking for. Every paint you use is going to alter how much water and how much you need to thin it, right? Yep. But what you're looking for a layer is you want it to cover in one or two coats and be nice and smooth. So however thin you need to make that. I usually will push my paint maybe a little thinner than I need to, and then I'll do another layer if I have to, because if you end up making your paint too thick, you're going to end up with problems that are harder to solve.
Yep. Creating texture too.
Yeah, same thing with glazes. I'll start pretty thin. You can see these. I mean, you can see it when I did it on my fingernail. It's like there's very little pigment in this paint. It's mostly water. And when you're on the model, I'm doing the same thing that I would do on the model. I'm pushing it around. So I make the pigment settle where I want it to. Yeah, so I would go thinner with my glazes too. Then I may need to, and add another layer. And then the next time I use that paint, I may remember how thin I enjoyed putting on that paint. So
yeah,
it just takes practice. I think getting a brush in your hand and trying some things is the best way to solve those problems.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm just going to fix a little bit of that.
So there is no perfect guide for the colors, for the blending, for the mixing. It's all going to change. Even if you're within the same brand, the red will work a little different than the blue, which works a little different than the yellow. Right. So always test it out and just grab a spoon, prime it, and just go ahead and mess around with it. Yeah. You'll be surprised how far you can go with that. Even if it's just a spoon, that's the point.
Yeah, if you're afraid of painting on your expensive $75 centerpiece Warhammer model because you don't want to ruin it, a plastic spoon is a great way to go.
Yep.
Pretty cheap.
Yep. I got a piece at home. It's from Age of Sigmar, and I don't even know what it is. It's some kind of berserker. a friend just gave this piece to me. He's like, yeah, here you go. And I'm like, it is this tall. He gave me some random paint. He's like, have fun. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No, I am not touching that until I feel comfortable. Go ahead.
And the great advice I learned from Mickey Mendes this year when he was doing classes here is for ionic paints as well as for the atom paints. Because of the cup kind of the type, you can actually just dip it into the paint right here. And once it's dry, you're going to have the reference of
That's
exact
genius.
dry
Yes.
color
It is.
but it's going to be using. So that's kind of little advice which will help with the...
I'm going to do that when I get home.
Yep.
All my paint. I have not done that. That's
Yep.
actually great advice.
I started doing that after he was stopping by. My wife was like, aren't you wasting paint? I'm like, no, trust me, this will go a long way.
Yeah. A little bit of paint goes a long way.
Mhm.
You'll use the same pots for. You can have one of these will last you a year. using it a lot.
Yeah, it's easy. Especially the highlights.
Yeah, definitely. The lighter colors will last longer.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I can keep working on layers, but I think the point's getting across for how I would glaze these transitions, and I think you can start to see the effects that it makes on the model when you do this, and you kind of erase those blends. I keep saying erase the blend. Erase the lines between the two colors with a blend. Yeah.
So it's kind of like you were putting a soft filter between the lines to make them not be as harshly apart.
Yeah, absolutely.
For all of you who use the Instagram filters and such, just think about that. Alrighty. Well,
yeah,
we are getting close to time. So we're going to go ahead and start wrapping it up, leaving you to that. We're going to post the pictures that we were talking about his pieces so that you can actually see in beautiful HD detail the amount of work that Spencer puts into these things because, dude.
Thank you.
It is, you definitely earned those prizes, like not even as a joke or like, oh, hey buddy. It's like, no, seriously.
Yeah.
Seeing you, the first time I met you, I was just like, oh yeah, you play games. Oh, you have some meetings. Let me see. Okay. I see you painting till you get here. I'm like, dude, you have gone really, really far, really fast.
Yeah.
Great
I
job
like
with
doing it a lot. It's my favorite medium now, for sure, of all the art that I try to do.
There's a lot of fun
You get the
to
best
it.
results when people enjoy what they're doing. You learn quick and you get the results. And we're gonna, of course, post the final version when you're gonna paint it at home.
Yes.
Whatever it's gonna be.
Yes, I'll do that.
Absolutely.
It'll be a lot brighter. I'll get a few more layers in there.
Absolutely. But right now, it's looking nice.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for coming on by.
Yeah, appreciate having me.
Yep. With that being said, thank you for coming live. We'll see you next week.
Thanks a lot.